Huge fan, so it's a great honor to talk to you. Thank you so much for taking the time.
My pleasure. Sorry about
I want to get started with the movie is very intense. So I want to get started. I saw that where it's sort of where'd you draw the inspiration sort of when you were writing this movie? And I know some of the locations in the movie are places that you spent time with when you were younger.
Yeah, I mean, the movie is inspired by, true events and inspired by some of my journeys in life. Um, but as an artist, the inspiration for this one kind of came out of the air. Like that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like it's like playing a horn and you just start jamming and jazzing, and it just comes out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's this great line in the movie, Shameik has near the end where it's he's like, I didn't win because of that I'm black, but I won because I was more better prepared. Was that kind of your thesis when you're writing his character arc throughout the movie, or was that sort of in the back of your head that this is the kind of story I want to tell?
Yeah, that was always the punchline. The preparation. This is why I chose to use Moses and Aaron and Joshua and David, the biblical characters, to convey, these are men that had to prepare for their journeys in life, prepare to enter the promised land, prepare to fight wars or fight oppression, right? And so preparation to me is so important in life. Prepping for that film. We sat there for weeks and weeks and trying to figure out, where we're going to shoot it at. So many different things. So yes, preparation was vital, and it was always the the culmination of my character's journey to show that being prepared, you got a chance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as the Wu-Tang Clan, you referred a lot of yourself as superheroes a lot of times in your music, especially like the X-Men and stuff like that. But would you consider Shamik's character unique as sort of an extension of that kind of hero archetype, or did you want to try to tell something different?
Well, I think I played a joke in the movie. You notice I had Jason Isbell come in,
Mm,
right? And he sings a song that's called Comic Book Life, right? On the bus. But he says that it's not a comic book life. And so that's like a warning to some, like, he said no superhero ever rescue me, yo. It's not a comic book life. So you gotta rescue yourself, you gotta save yourself. The Avengers are not coming. But still, this is a movie, right? So when we get to that third act, it's like out of all things to do, he has to become a hero. But in the first act, when the parole officer asks him, "So what are you, some kind of hero?" And he go, "Nah, man, I'm far from that."
mm.
But at the end, he makes it, and that's the hero's journey. You gotta pick that sword up and slay that dragon. You gotta, go through your origin story, Peter Parker, and do the right thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. And then when you're casting Shamik in this role, well, everyone knows him as Miles Morales. It's like where he's kind of playing an underdog, but this time he's not the underdog. He's very much playing a very different kind of character. What did you see in him that brought out this performance, or that you knew that he was capable of this performance?
Well, I did a movie with Shameik Moore called Cutthroat City, where he was even younger and even more innocent in life. He never loaded a gun before until on set of that movie. But I noticed that he had the ability to be a sponge. And then we had him work for 5 years on the Wu-Tang American Saga series, and I just watched him play Raekwon, and I watched him like in season one, he was had less weight. In season two and three, he was heavier, and he's a sponge. And so when I got up to page 60 of this screenplay, I was like, yeah, I think I'm gonna call Shameik for this and see if it works in his schedule. And I reached out to him. We had lunch, and he was excited about it. You know what I mean? And here we are in theaters right now. After this
Yeah, no,
long
he's
journey,
incredible.
we in the theaters right now. Bam,
Yeah,
Let me just do that one time. All right.
no, no, he's incredible in the movie. And then speaking of, you mentioned gun. There's not that much gun action in the movie until the very end. So what was that? What led to that making that decision where you wanted all this hand-to-hand combat, this very intense kind of intimate combat between these guys versus, and then ultimately it turns into what it turns into.
Well, that's that's my Shaw brother kung fu movie uh homage too, right? When I was a kid, I would go watch kung fu movies all the time, and I would hate when a gun popped up because what's the use of kung fu? Motherfucker
Mm.
got a gun, right? And so I wanted also to make my movie feel that way. Like I wanted to remove the ease of victory. With a gun is a potential easy victory, right? But without it, how does a man stand? And our villains were dangerous without a gun. I mean, those bats were dangerous. You know what I mean? And so,
Mm.
that was a cinematic choice. Of course, it's not like we're taking place in 1500 years ago when nobody got guns, like a Shaw Brother film. But this is like it was just my way of cinematically suspending time because you can't tell what year this is. I made it ambiguous. You probably think it's the 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever you think. I leave it to the audience. And then also suspending the the normal way that an action film today play, which is guns and tons of bullets flying everywhere and all that's not. We're going to remove that. We're going to make this visceral and physical.
Yeah, no, the finale is phenomenal. And so how long did that kind of take to stage and put together? Whereas, and then I know you also recently worked on the Nobody films, which are you're amazing in those movies. So did working with 8711 help inspire some of the action sequences we see later in this movie?
Well, at first, when I first wrote it, I sent it to 8711 to maybe be the stunt team for it. They was in the middle of the Fall Guy and so many things. They was like, man, this is, you know, they said that we'll give you some consultation. And so I went and got this guy named Maurice Crump, who he helped train Chadwick Boseman become the Black Panther. He also was my stuntman in Man of the Iron Fist, but he's really good at choreography. And so I had him do some demos and I sent it back to 87 North. And it was like, yeah, you'll be in good hands with this guy. This guy, he has something special. And so then I just kept it, I just told him, look, okay, well, here's the scenes. Here's start designing them. You got to design them for close quarters because I'm going to build all these different rooms. And he did a great job. And Shameik didn't have a lot of time to train, but I knew that Shameik was always he's a boxer. He always punching. Every time he's working on set, he's punching pads and doing all type of martial arts shit. I'm like, okay, this kid, he gonna know what to do when the time is right. And when the time is right, he did it. He got injured once or twice, but it didn't really stop production. He just kept going.
Yeah, no, no, he's very visceral. And so when you like you've produced so much great music, you've started making films. You've been making films for the past 10 plus years now. So what kind of challenges did the has filmmaking like as you've evolved as a filmmaker, as a director, as a producer, what kind of challenges does this present that was different from producing music?
I mean, film is the most expensive form of creativity. I mean, cinema film, right? I don't mean pull out your iPhone. And even that way, though, to get it right, to get costumes, to get editing, it takes a lot of time and a lot of dime. And when something goes wrong, like for instance, when that car didn't flip right the first time, I only had one car left. It's like, if it don't flip right the second time, bro, yeah, I'm really gonna have a 1970s film, right? Because you know what I mean. And
Hmm.
so it's just delicate, with music. It was challenging in the 90s because you had 24 track and you could punch in, but you didn't have Pro Tools where you got hundreds of tracks and endless of tracks. You know what I mean? You had limited time and all that. Film is still limited into the ability because we shot this movie in 30 days. You know, we couldn't afford 40 days. We couldn't afford 50 days, 60 days. And we did probably based on how many setups me and Brandon Cox, my DP, had to do, we probably shot 50 days worth of work. And that means we had to just be moving and running and gunning and everybody had to be sharp. It wasn't like we could do 20 takes, you know what I mean? So film is just a very challenging medium, but I love it, bro. It's like all my stimulation, everything. I realized I got an octopus brain and I need my tentacles to be moving. Film does that. That should have you. That should have every tentacle touching something, bro.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I don't want to keep you too long, but the film's ending is such a it's such a perfect moment. When did you kind of pick out or decide on that ending? And was there ever anything else that you had written?
No, that ending was there, bro. Um, I could just say this to you. It was kind of like selfish. Like I wanted it, like it was intentional. I wanted it. I wanted it. I wanted just. What I wanted was silence for a moment and then clapping for a moment. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Yeah. If you understand what I mean.
Yeah, no, I understand 100%. But thank you so much for your time, Riz. I really appreciate it. Huge fan again. Thank you so much for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Peace.
Thank